Hey guys, welcome to the Service Hub, where we give you tips and tricks for your service business success. Today we have a really special guest, Corey Phillip. Corey, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, man. How you guys doing?
Doing awesome. So Corey's coming at us live from Florida today, where he owns Gulf Coast Aluminum, and I understand it's a really specific product, kind of to the south. I'm excited to hear about it, and also he runs and owns HomePro. Success.com, which is kind of like a source or it's a real hub for learning about marketing and, tips and tricks for helping to perpetuate your service business and its success. So, Corey, real quick, let's just touch base on kind of your story. Tell us about Gulf Coast Aluminum and where you got started. Just give us a high level view of where you're coming from.
For sure. So Gulf Coast Aluminum is a screen enclosure company, at least at the specific level. Broader level, we're an exterior contracting company, so we'd kind of fit in with like patio deck companies. Screen enclosures, as Trevor mentioned, they're very specific to Florida, particularly. Probably 90% of the market is here, and they exist in some other Gulf Coast states where there's a lot of mosquitoes, parts of Texas, Alabama, Louisiana, but by and large, real big business here in Florida. So I started the company in 2012. That's when I started. I guess I'll take you further back. My friend in high school and I were actually doing this work as teenagers. We kind of got started doing this work in 2004 when Hurricane Charlie came through our area. We were 14 or 15 at that time. And hurricanes level screen enclosures do a good number of damage there. So there was a lot of work to go around and we needed jobs. So we ended up doing screen enclosure work at that time. And the companies we were working for were just miserably unorganized, unprofessional. The customers were unhappy. And him and I were teenagers at this point. We're literally at a high school lunch cafeteria table. I remember it exactly where it was. I remember what the benches were like, what they felt like, what they looked like, everything. And one of us said to the other, I don't remember this part. One of us said to the other, though, hey, if we could, start a company like this and just run a halfway decent business, we would, do absolutely great. So that was that. A few years go by. We go to different colleges. We're getting ready to graduate college in 2012. And again, one of us says to the other, hey, remember when we were younger, we talked about opening up a screen enclosure company? And then the other one of us said, yeah, now's the time to do it. And it was just kind of game on at that point. We had both worked for general contractors through college, handling sales and administrating and permitting and stuff like that. So we were eligible to, meet the license requirements in Florida to take the test and pass it and become a licensed operation. So just like that, in October 2012, we were off to the races, him and I, and one truck, and we were ready to roll. Fast forward to these days, 2019, 7 years later, we're several $1 million a year operation. We've got over 60 employees in 2 locations in Southwest Florida, and a lot more than one truck.
That's awesome. So are you still with your original partner then?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, awesome. That's fantastic, man. I love that. It's like, you hear these business stories and oftentimes they mature out of somebody having like real professional experience for a long time, but you guys literally have like the high school love story of your business.
Well, look, I'll tell you, number one, you hear high school love story there, but it's a lot like a marriage. I mean, there's some heated conversations between the two of us. We're fortunate that we can, both work professionally and come out of things, and sometimes we will just argue it out on topics, and at the end of it we'll be like, you know what, F this, I'm done with this, you're right, we'll just do it your way. And he's like, no, what, it's your way, and neither one of our ways are really wrong, and sometimes we're arguing the same point from 2 different sides, but we get through all that stuff, so it's not like it's dandelions and fairies, it's all there's some rocky road there, but it's done pretty well, and I wouldn't work with anybody else on it. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, that's it. I think I was going to say something else, but I totally forget what I was going to say.
Well, let me ask you this question then, Corey, because we can see your face, our audience can't. Mm-hmm. How old are you? You look like you're like 20, maybe 25.
Yeah, so I get that. I look like I'm hardly a day out of high school. I'm 29. I'll be 30 in a couple months.
Okay, yeah, that's so awesome. For a 30-year-old to be killing it like that.
Hey, I'm still 29, man. Don't give me those months yet.
We just don't we don't see that very much, right? A lot of people are typically in their 40s, 50s when they really start to see the success roll in, and so that's awesome, man.
Yeah.
What kind of role are you playing right now in that business? Like, what do you guys have different roles?
Yeah, we do, absolutely. At this point, things are pretty well systematized, so we're not really too needed. I mean, it's kind of weird to say. Like we both go to the office every day, but he's largely in charge of operations and that sort of thing. I'm largely in charge of sales and marketing. And, but within that, we've got people underneath of us. So it's not like we're really, I shouldn't say this out loud, but it's not like we're doing a ton, we can afford to take some extended
off.
Vacations and travel regularly, which we do. And, those would kind of be our two general roles. There's a time when we worked at them 12 hours a day kind of on it, but now it's mainly just a matter of supervising the reports that we have underneath of us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of the dream, though, honestly. I think most entrepreneurs or business owners get into business because they want to be able to spend more time with their family or have the financial freedom to allow them to live the life that they really want. And so it's cool to see that you're doing that. And
well, I'll tell you, at 22, I mean, that wasn't my thought. My thing was I do not want to work for anybody else.
Or that.
That was it.
Both.
Like I'd established that very early on in life. Like I do not want to have like a job. So I'm going to start a business. And that was kind of it. That was the one thing I knew. And the funny thing is like hindsight, if I knew how hard it was going to be at this point, I don't know if I would go back and do it all over again.
And that's the funny thing is a lot of people say, I'm going to start a business so I don't have to have a job. And then you create a job for yourself. And then it's
you ultimately create a job.
I just did this.
It's pretty good working for yourself. I'm not gonna lie and not gonna sugarcoat that. But until you get to a certain point, there's a lot of hours in there. But I'd rather be putting those hours into myself than anywhere else.
That's awesome.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. So it looks like you guys have taken a business that you said was fairly disorganized. There was there's probably a lot of competition, being that it's really specific to the industry and the location. So what would you say if you could give me like maybe one or two really big highlights to say, hey, this is what set us apart and helped us to rise above our competition and become more successful to the point where, you aren't really working in your business every day and yet it's very successful and very profitable, I guess. Well, what do you attribute some of your success to?
Oh gosh, there's a couple things, I guess these are the two factors that would kind of line up to any business, but sales and marketing, knowing how to sell and market your business. And then number two, having the right people behind, right people on board behind the business. You'll see this a lot in trades businesses. There's some that, grow very rapidly, but they do that at the expense of customer satisfaction. Their whole mentality is like sell, sell, sell. And then we put the customer second and we figure out how to get it done. You have to put the customer first, at least in my opinion, and it's worked out quite well for me. And granted, I'm sure somebody could tell you the opposite. I like having the customers happy. I like reading my good reviews. I hate getting bad reviews. So I like feeling, at least, ethically, I like feeling like we are truly the best service provider. I would recommend my company to my mom. If she wasn't my mom, but I don't know how to say this. I think that made sense. So I would recommend my company to my mom. You know what I mean? And I would recommend her paying full price and saying that she's getting the full value of her service. So that's kind of a rule of thumb. But yeah, knowing how to sell and market is obviously my big thing, and having the right people on board so that you can rely on it. It's very tough relying on people. I always say, if you want to be disappointed, try hiring someone. You will be continually disappointed. So you got to have the right people on board the ship.
Yeah, no, I agree 100% with that. If you want to be really disappointed, you try hiring somebody. But what's crazy about that though is you can, as long as you have some proper systems and procedures in place, you're going to have a lot higher rate of success. Would you agree? I mean, that's kind of how it's been for me. Absolutely. But it's, I know from a contractor's perspective, it's really, really hard to get those systems in place when your projects are all varying, right? You've got no two projects are the same. You're not selling widgets that you put in a box and send out. It's not the kind of business we are. While you can kind of narrow your services down, everything's a little different. So it's really hard to systematize things. And it's even harder to do that when you're doing all the work yourself or struggling to find people to do the work. It's a chicken and the egg scenario. Totally.
Is really what it is.
Well, I'd venture to say that most businesses today are dealing with a little bit of a challenge of having the system in place that you've created for your business, which is to bring in new leads, bring in new customers, be able to market the business. And I know there's businesses out there that are doing a really good job at that, but that's something that I've struggled with. I'm kind of curious. I want to know more about some of the things you created to really systemize your marketing and sales. Can you kind of give us a little bit of like a peek into that and maybe
Yeah,
some
absolutely I can here. And I'm going to preface this by saying I don't mean to make this a pitch because I do run a marketing training program here. But basically what I've put together is a literal step-by-step marketing process for a home service business, because I do a lot. Everyone always asks, what do you do for leads, or what do you do for sales, etc. And the thing is, it's really a factor of a bunch of things. And, people see me running Facebook ads. I spend over $10,000 a month on Facebook ads for my company, and it does great, killer ROI. And everybody always wants to know how I do it, what we're doing on Facebook. When the issue is you shouldn't be focusing on that. There's a lot of stuff lower level in the stream. So I've put together a 9-step, or it's more than 9 steps because we've added some things to it, but a basic overall framework and pathway for this stuff, starting with identifying your profitable projects and customers, going into your branding, social proof, then having a website, then understanding your sales process, and then getting relationship marketing set up. So no matter where your leads come from, they all get into an effective system at this point, and you're going to convert them. So that, I guess I'll go back and say a lot of people will, run Facebook ads and say all the leads there are crap. No, they're not crap leads. I've done this. I did this back in March. We had 800 leads in March come through. And I asked my sales team when they came in our CRM just to flag this as good lead or bad lead. And my sales team flagged 95% of them, over 95% and change of them as bad lead. And mind you, this is a very well-trained, highly compensated sales team. 95% of my leads, which, some of the best marketing and home service, business can do, 95% of them were bad leads. All right. So the reality is no matter where you're getting your leads from, you have to understand how to work with these leads and sell to them, because naturally, a good lead is somebody that comes in and says, I know I want you to do the job. I know specifically what I want, and my budget is whatever you're going to charge me. And there's a few that come in and say that, but most people don't.
Yeah.
Most people are going to say, I'm considering this project and I'm getting estimates. So you have to know how to sell to those people, those 95%.
Yeah.
So I threw a lot at you there, but I think that's crucial is absolutely knowing how to close those leads. And then once you understand that and you can do that, it doesn't matter what your lead source is or how much you're paying per lead, essentially, at that point.
Yeah, that's powerful. I think it's definitely a big indication. There's a guy that I know in a book that I've read, and I can't remember what it is. Maybe I'll put it in the show notes once I figure it out. But he talks about how 3% of leads are typically ready to buy right now. And so if you look at your numbers, right, it's not necessarily that 95% of them weren't a good lead. They just maybe weren't ready to buy right now.
So it sounds like he's right in the same alley with where I am, with where my sales team was at.
Yeah,
right.
Totally.
Right about 3 to 5%.
Yep.
So I'm kind of curious, like what did you guys, what would you do with that 95% that weren't ready to buy? Like, do you guys just throw the leads away and say
no? You guys knew I was going to say that, right? We're not throwing leads away. No,
yeah, of course.
That's the thing. So many people are wasting money there. So many trades businesses are wasting money there. They just, they get these leads and they just disqualify them out. Okay. So let's see, where should we go with this? Where should we start with the process? Obviously, you have to have a good sales kind of follow-up system in place to schedule the leads, right? So you want to make contact with them. You need to be persistent with that. We do that through phone calls and email, and it's text message too. One thing, this is a real cool trick. A lot of times you'll get a lead and you'll go to call them, right? That's the first thing you should do when you get a lead, and more leads are coming through from an online source. So it's not like they actually just pick up the phone and call. Our inbound phone calls year over year for the last 3 years are down, but we're still getting more leads. Why? Because they come through a website form or a landing page from Facebook or something like that. So we get their information. They're right there in front of us. We need to make contact with them. Ideally, the strongest impression you can get right there is going to be on the phone. So you want to call them, right? So what we'll do is we'll call them. If they don't answer on that first call, we'll leave a message saying, hey, sorry you weren't able to connect right now. I'm going to try calling you back in 5 or 10 minutes. And then we'll also send them a text saying, hey, this is Corey with Gulf Coast Aluminum. We're going to try calling you back in 5 or 10 minutes. Now they actually answer the phone because they know who that number is. If you think about it, nobody answers phone calls from a number they don't recognize.
Yeah, no, I
right.
don't.
So that has radically increased the amount of, or the swiftness at which we can get people on the phone. And most of the time, I don't have the exact numbers, but I'd say at least 75% of these people that don't answer on that first call answer that second call 5 or 10 minutes later that we make. So huge trick right there. Get them on the phone. Then once you get them, on the phone, you want to schedule a time to go out there. In general, there are other qualifying tactics out there, but your next step would be, hey, let's get in front of you and actually try to sell the service. I've got a whole framework for this. My whole marketing program is backed up by frameworks. I've got over 40 frameworks. We call it the Valve Stem Sales Strategy. I don't think we have time to go through it. If you want me to go through it, I'm happy to talk you guys through it. But the key thing is at the end that you ask for the sale. So many people just kind of write down a number on paper and they really don't know what to say. And then the customer just says, okay, well, we'll think about it and call you back. No. You have to ask for the sale.
Yeah.
So my favorite and my simplest ask for the sale is, should we get this written up? Naturally,
awesome.
Most of the time, the customers, there's some pre-framing that goes into that. A lot of the customers will say, yeah. And this came up, I realized this a couple of years ago when we had this one sales guy that was extremely knowledgeable. He was a technician for us, real sharp, knew the product well-spoken. And we pulled him into the office. We started training him to do sales. And he would go out, we'd send him on these sales calls, and he'd come back. He'd be like, oh, yeah, Mr. Jones was an awesome guy. I'm like, yeah, so awesome. You got a deposit? Nah, I didn't get a deposit. He said he was going to think about it, I mean, like, this kid was real smart, real knowledgeable, just awesome. And, he just wasn't pulling in any sales numbers. His sales numbers were so horribly low. So we started kind of analyzing what he's up to, what he's doing. The thing was, he just never asked for this sale. Wow. And since I started training my salespeople just to ask for the sale at the end of every conversation, do not walk away, do not hang up the phone until you ask, should we get this written up? And, don't do that. And with that line, you can take basically anybody that knows, the product or your services halfway decently. With that line, you can put them out in the sales field and they're going to be a decent performer.
Right. And what's incredible to me about this is, like, oftentimes service-based businesses, contractors, they're really good at their trade. They're really good at making aluminum frames and mosquito nets, or they're really good at shingles or whatever they're doing. But they come from that world and have never sold anything. And so, in sales world, it's really simple. Like, oh yeah, you always ask for the sale. I led a sales team for Tesla, and the biggest thing is we kept talking about, ask for the sale, because how weird would it be if you went to a restaurant and they gave you the menu and they never came back and like, oh, would you like to order? They just like show up and they just sit there and look at you. You're like, so are you going to ask me to like place my order or not? And like, I think when we think of it,
that is a killer analogy.
We think of it in that framework, because I think a lot of people are afraid of like feeling pushy or overbearing, but really no, it's like, it's an invitation. Like, hey, do you want to come to my party? Yes. Do you want to order your food? Yes, of course I want that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think there's a good way to ask for it too. It's not necessarily just saying, are you ready to buy? Right? I love what you guys are saying. You're saying, should we get this written up? It's in a really casual way that doesn't make the customer feel pressured. I know for me, sometimes I like to say, we usually take a 50% deposit, and how would you guys like to pay for that? Do you like to do cash? Do you guys like to do check? Right? You're just assuming the sell and helping the thing progress. And if the cool thing is, I typically personally, when I assume the sell, I'm not doing it to close the deal. That's the main purpose. Obviously, I'm doing it to find out if they have any more objections that I can help resolve, or any questions that they have. So if you ask that question, you typically get somebody that says, I want to think about it. Then you follow up with a question. What's holding you back from maybe moving forward with this, right? It allows for the conversation to continue and to resolve any other questions they have that maybe you haven't talked about. So yeah, I think that's awesome, man. It's really good. Good
thanks,
advice.
man. Hopefully a lot of you guys out there listening kind of put that into action. As I see so many contractors do it, I did it in the very beginning. You just kind of write this number down. Here's your estimate. And then everybody just kind of looks at each other, and the awkward moment of silence. Customer's like, okay, we're going to think about it.
Yeah.
If you don't ask, you're always going to get a, we're going to be thinking about it. So,
right.
On that note, for the bad leads, the ones that don't qualify for us to go out there, I'll tell you what we do with all of them. And the people that qualify to go out there, as soon as they come into our system, as soon as they come into a CRM, we get them into Facebook marketing campaigns. We actually identify, using Facebook's Pixel, the people that have requested an estimate from us. So we do that, and then we've got an audience of them on Facebook, and we run ads to them, and we create 3 new ads each week, so they're never seeing the same thing over and over again. There's always something new, unique, and different to put in front of them. New, unique, and different sells. We can't make our services any more new, unique, or different. Like most of us are in trades where it's kind of commoditized, and it's been the same way for the last 30 to 50 years, but you can always make new content, and that will sell. So we start getting our content. So as soon as they hang up the phone with us, or as soon as they request that estimate, guess who's rolling through their Facebook feed? Right here, Gulf Coast Aluminum. So we'll hit them there, and then we also do email marketing. We send out at least 1 email campaign each week.
That's powerful. They always say, I mean, I've been through sales training, and I've taken some online courses, and one of the things that I hear consistently is the fortune is in the follow-up, right? It's like I look back at that too, and almost all of the time that I've closed a deal or sold something or got another contract in business, I've always found myself getting the deal because I followed up. It wasn't because they said yes on the first phone call. I followed up 3 or 4 or 5 times, and that rings so true. I love that.
Yeah, so here's a cool thing on follow-ups. I'll tell you this. A lot of people think of follow-ups as calling up and saying, hey, are you ready to go ahead with your project? Something like that. That stuff is so tacky.
Yeah.
What we do here, what I train all my CSRs and salespeople to do, is we send them a piece of content, right? So we're publishing something on Facebook, on our website, like every day. There's always something new out there. So let's just say we have Jim who's interested in a new pool cage. We might send him some photos. I mean, you don't. We would send a blog post that'll have the photos in it and a little write-up. But even if you don't have that, you just post some photos on Facebook, and you can link them right to that Facebook post, or you could just attach them and just say, "Hey, Jim, we just recently completed a pool cage project. It's similar to yours, and in some way explain how it would be similar to what he's considering," and send it off by email, right? So no prompt, no question, and then we'll send that off in about. Well, our system will tell us when they read it. So if we're paying attention to it, we'll call them right after they open it. But if we aren't paying attention to it, we'll call them, a few hours later and just say, hey, Jim, I sent you an email this morning. Did you get it? That's it. And just let them open up the conversation like that. We don't really prompt them to take any action, or we don't really prompt to get a response out of what they think or where they're at in the sales process. But we take the focus off of that by this piece of content and turn the follow-up is focused on the content, which naturally lets us open the door and have a conversation about their project rather than just calling up and saying, hey, I'm wondering if you made any decision on your project. No, we're focusing on, hey, did you get this piece of content? And the customers are far, far more receptive, because I've made those calls. I made hundreds, thousands of them. When you call them and you start asking, hey, are you ready to go ahead with this project? Or I'm just following up with you. They just want to get you off the phone so quickly.
Yeah, but you're providing value to them with that piece of content, giving them a little scratch on the back before they engage back with you.
Yeah, and building trust. I mean, they're seeing it. Hey, we just did this one this past week. Boom. That's a big fear of any contractor client is that you're going to run off with their deposit money, or you're going to start the project and not finish. When they're seeing these projects get completed day after day, in our case, because we're sending out so many emails and Facebook ads, they're like, all right, these guys are the real deal. Like, they actually get stuff done.
Right.
Well, and you're tapping into a really powerful social psychology as well, cognitive biases, right? If for those that are listening and haven't read the book, The Psychology of Influence by, I forget the author's name. Anyways, awesome book. He talks about the reasons why people purchase. And what you guys are doing there is it's considered social proofing. You're building social proof. And people, that's one of the reasons why people buy, is because of social proof. It's not the only reason why. There's other things that happen, but that's a value bomb right there. People should be paying us for this podcast, because that's a serious, that's so much value to know that, like, don't just call and follow up and ask them to buy. Send them something that's valuable and build some social proof.
Right.
That's killer.
So the big question that I would think I would have as a contractor, I'm sitting here listening to this going, okay, cool, send them a piece of content. Your example was, a recent project, maybe some photos, some things like that. But I think about, man, I mean, I spray for mosquitoes, or I do concrete, or I do windows. Like, what am I going to send them? Like, what the heck? How am I going to create content that's actually valuable, that's interesting when, like, I wash windows? Like, what am I supposed to do? I guess what would be your answer to somebody coming to you with that kind of a situation?
Okay, yeah.
Saying,
So good question here, right? Somebody that's a good friend of mine and who's kind of followed my content, he owns a company that makes grass green. I mean, they spray chemicals on grass and make it green. Big business down here in Florida where there's golf courses everywhere, right? So, I mean, that's about as boring as you can be. There's not much to show. So in that case, his photos that he's using for marketing, you tend to focus on A, the locations or the places where you're working for this golf course, for that golf course. B, you make it about the customer. And I've got what I call the $1 million contractor marketing photography framework in there, where I show examples of all these pictures of my own marketing, and some of his might even be in there as well. So make it about the customer. Get a picture of the customer holding a sign, in front of their lawn. Like holding your company sign that says, in his case, Terra Garden Solutions, right there in front of their lawn, giving a thumbs up.
Right.
You can do that. So location, customer, and then also your staff. That's incredibly powerful. Tell the story behind your staff and include your vehicles and resources. So, hey, this is what this piece of equipment is, and this is how we're using it on this project right there.
Wow.
So make it about your operation and not so much about the product or service that you deliver. Because, I mean, it's even a challenge in screen enclosures. There's only so many ways you can show a screen enclosure, right? It's basically been the same for the last 40 years. It's white or bronze, and it's got 3 different types of mesh. It's not a real creative service.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and people like to connect with humans, and so if they know you guys are human, it makes it easier for people to connect with you and want to work with you, and so that's powerful. I really like that. I had a question. I don't know if you're comfortable with disclosing this or not, but what CRM are you guys using?
Yeah, we're using a program called KickServe.
Okay, cool. KickServe. If you're listening, we're just giving you some free
yeah, it's a pretty good CRM. So. I've been with it since the beginning, 2012. I know there's competitors to it. They all are largely the same and with their each little differentiation point. But KickServe is pretty good. It runs us about $300 a month for unlimited users. There's some other ones at that price point. I know of Jobber, House Call Pro. Those are Jobber, House Call Pro, and KickServe are 3 major competitors, and they run about $300 a month for unlimited users for the most part. Yeah. So
no, that's cool to know. I think listeners probably want to know. Yeah, what are you guys using? And so in regards to Facebook ads and all of that retargeting, are you doing that, or are you hiring people that are specialists at that?
So it's all largely developed by me and initially started by me, but back about 6 months ago when I started coming up with this framework, actually it was more like a year ago, about a year ago I started coming up with this framework. I'm like, all right, we're going to systemize this marketing thing. A lot of people want to learn it from me. A lot of people want to know what I'm up to, and so far it's all up in my head, so we're going to put this whole thing out here, and I'm literally going to map this out, and this is the process we follow. And then about 6 months ago, I started onboarding a marketing team right now. So, I've got a handful of people underneath of me that follow my process, my method to pull off all this marketing stuff.
Totally. So for our listeners that are busy and aren't, there's definitely different kinds of people out there, right? There's contractors, there's technician-minded people, there's engineer-minded people. When it comes to marketing, I guess for those that just don't have that knack or don't quite have the experience you have, what would you recommend to them? Would you recommend they partner with somebody, or what?
My recommendation there, and again, I hate to make this all into a pitch. I did not plan on this. We didn't even know it was going to go this way. But this conversation has actually gone totally left field of where we actually wanted to go with things in the plan. So, anyways, I put together the framework and the roadmap. We'll link to it or whatever, something below this podcast. Check that out, because this really clarifies exactly where you should be working at in your marketing, right? So understand the whole process there, and then it's up to you. You can figure out if you want to try to outsource independent parts of this. What I really suggest, and this is totally feasible because I've done this, is that you hire somebody that is marketing minded. They're interested in it. They're interested in your company. Somebody in your office, probably somebody on your sales team already. For a lot of contractors where it's a family business, the wife is often the one doing this. Sign up to my marketing training program and literally go through that step by step. It's all there. I'm not a rah kind of Tony Robbins type of person where I talk about mindset. I'm actually the total opposite anti of mindset. My mindset is on my bank account at the end of the day. Like, let's be real. That's my mindset. You know what I mean? So I'm not all about that. I don't do, this isn't going to be like, get in the right mindset to do it. I don't do that. This is literally step by step. All the technical training behind everything is in there.
Totally.
That's
so
awesome.
So at least understand the process behind it, and when you see it, you're gonna be like, oh wow, this this makes a ton of sense. I'm trying to do this when really I should be focusing my my efforts on this before I move on to the next step.
Yeah, so is that primarily a resource for somebody who's looking to kind of do it themselves? Because I also think about the business owner who, they're super busy and they don't have time. Is that something that is primarily, I guess your services, I mean, not to make it a pitch again, but while we're there, I mean, it sounds like a lot of training and coursework, but is there also an option for them to kind of outsource some of that work maybe to you guys?
There is, in one section of it, which is a real tedious section, it's one of those things where it's like, I can teach you how to do it. You can certainly do it yourself, but it's going to take you, say, 8 hours a week to, of actual effort putting into it. You could outsource that to my team. That is an option. So the whole thing is not outsourceable. That's kind of one of the big points that I stress is a key person in the business needs to understand marketing, and your best marketing material will come from in-house. So after you cover identifying your profitable customers and target services, so identifying the target services that you want to sell, because you can really only market to 3 to 5 people. Even with a marketing team, I cannot market more than 5 services. Like, it's just too much going on. Yeah. So, you need to hone in on what you actually want to target and then identify who is going to buy that specifically and understand their pain points. That's the first thing that I teach and train. The second thing is building your brand, and that involves implementing a process so that you gather content from the field. You're taking pictures before every project, after every project. You're taking some pictures with the customers, your resources, right? So you're getting all this stuff on each project. Only once you have that stuff can you really start jumping into the high-level marketing, because there's, no stock image you're going to buy that's actually going to make a bit of difference in your marketing. People want to see real, authentic photos out there. Right. They don't want to see kind of whatever you buy on like iStockPhoto.com. Like, that's just not going to work. And I see people trying that all the time. If your website has stock photos on there, get them off, like ASAP, like 101, step 1 right there. But I start at the beginning with that stuff in step 2. So you should understand all this stuff. And then once you start understanding, it's broken up into 3 levels. I call it the foundation, powerhouse, and accelerator. So foundation is largely branding. Powerhouse is sales, your website, and nurturing and stuff like that. And then accelerators is basically lead generators. But at least at the first 2 levels, you should be able to do all that stuff in-house. It's not extremely technical, but you really need to have an understanding of your target customers, your brand image, building the social proof before you can really outsource that. But once you're in there, you'll realize, and I say and suggest in some areas, hey, here's what you can and should outsource, and here's who to outsource it to. But ideally, you want somebody on staff that understands it all.
Yeah, I'd agree.
I couldn't imagine running a trades business without it. So.
No, and I was just going to use your business as an example. I mean, you've got a business partner that helps with operations, and like you mentioned, you handle all sales and marketing. And so, for listeners out there, it might come to a point where you need to consider, I might need a partner. You can't build a business by yourself. It's impossible. And maybe you don't need a partner, but gain some understanding so that when it comes to hiring people, who's lying and who's not lying, and you at least have an understanding enough that you can kind of sniff the phony without losing some money, for sure. So
exactly, yeah, and the program is relatively low cost. I mean, right now there have been some introductory pricing going on for people that are in my Facebook group and my email list and people I know. But all in all, it's going to be settling around $200 a month. And if you want to sign up for 1 month and understand where you're at, what you're doing, get some tips. I mean, not get some tips, but learn the whole thing. If you're really motivated, you can go through it all in a month and then end it. That's totally cool.
That's awesome.
It's totally feasible here, because I've done this with the marketing team I built. They all got trained on this exact same process. You have somebody that's motivated in marketing, have them learn it, and let them go through the program and run all your marketing for you.
Yeah,
so
right.
That's
100%
practical and feasible with this. So
absolutely. On that note, I guess, so where do people look for you, Corey? Like, what's the best way to get in contact with you, or if they're interested in kind of what you have to offer, where should they go? How do they find you?
Yeah, so you can always check out my company website, gulfcoastaluminum.com. You can check out the blog and podcast at homeprosuccess.com. And then once you're there, you can find the Facebook group. So you can join that if you want. There should be a way that you can message me through the Home Pro Success website. And poke around homeprosuccess.com, take a look, and it's pretty easy to get connected. Actually, there's a Get Connected page on Home Pro Success. So you can look through that, and I'm not too hard to find.
That's awesome. And I will add my own, testimony there that I've been on your Facebook page. I've been on your website. And if you guys liked what you heard today from Corey, you're going to love what's there, because he shares a lot of content, a lot of stuff, for free without, if you're like, oh man, $200 a month, like I can't opt into that. But like, I've seen a lot of your videos, I've heard some of the chatter and your own podcast, and it's super valuable stuff that's really low hanging fruit, even for just for free. So we encourage our listeners to go and check that out for sure.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Trevor.
Yeah,
absolutely. Well, guys, we're coming up on the end here. We appreciate you guys listening. If you haven't done so yet, go give us a review on whatever platform you guys use, Spotify, iTunes, we're out there, SoundCloud, whatever it is. Again, this is Parker Williams, and our co-host Trevor Hansen. Thanks for listening, guys, and I look forward to the next episode.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Corey, for being with us.
You're welcome, man. Thanks for having me on.
Of course.